whole civilization will die tonight." That is an exact, published quote from the President of the United States, issued directly to the people of Iran. The United States and Israel are currently locked in a rapidly escalating conflict over a tiny, vital geographic choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. But the White House is managing this volatile military standoff with a strange, manufactured energy. They are explicitly packaging the violence as an entertainment product. Speaking to reporters, the president actively fished for reviews, asking, "How do you like the performance?" Meanwhile, the administration's social media accounts began releasing combat footage seamlessly spliced with clips from action movies and computer-generated video games. Traditional military analysis fails to decode these actions because they are looking at them through the lens of geopolitics. To actually understand what the administration is doing, you have to look at the conflict through the scripted logic of a Hollywood blockbuster. In a suspense-driven narrative, the audience must immediately feel the weight of the stakes. The threat has to be made clear and visceral from the opening scene. The administration established those stakes by targeting the survival of tens of millions of people. By threatening the end of a civilization, they ensured the entire world was watching. Yet, when asked about the stakes for Americans, the possibility of retaliatory strikes on domestic soil, the president's response was a nonchalant, "I guess." The administration is highly focused on the spectacle of the threat, but detached from the reality of the blowback. To force action, that tension needs a focal point, a definitive deadline, a timer that forces every player to act before the countdown hits zero. The White House issued an ultimatum. Iran must reopen the strait by 8 p.m. Eastern, or the U.S. military will wipe out its power plants and bridges. A fifth of the world's crude oil flows here. A closure puts a stranglehold on the global economy. By applying an artificial prime-time deadline to a complex diplomatic standoff, the administration has successfully mutated international statecraft into a high-anxiety public thriller. To keep the pressure high, the story requires a steady increase in kinetic danger, constant hazards that remind the audience that the threat is moving closer. Hours before the deadline, that escalation materialized. U.S. and Israeli forces initiated fresh bombing campaigns, starting with strikes on Karg Island, the nerve center for Iranian oil exports. The targeting then expanded aggressively. Explosions ripped through railway lines and bridges in Kashan, following an Israeli military warning for Iranians to avoid traveling by train for their own safety. While the primary focus is on the military strikes, a secondary drama is playing out in the background. A frantic scramble by supporting characters attempting to stop the bomb from going off. Here, Pakistan's prime minister is moving through back channels, begging Washington and Tehran to accept a 2-week ceasefire just to let diplomacy breathe. Amnesty International and the Pope have joined this frantic effort, warning that intentionally destroying civilian power grids and water supplies constitutes a series of war crimes. The Iranian regime has introduced its own terrifying countermeasure, government officials explicitly instructing students and civilians to form human chains around the country's power plants. This noise of desperate diplomats and human shields only serves to heighten the global panic as the 8 p.m. deadline rapidly approaches. The software company Arc Studio defines narrative suspense simply as wanting to know the answer to a question. Tonight, the question being asked is whether millions of people will instantly lose their power, their drinking water, and their lives. We already have fragments of the answer. 18 civilians, including children, have been killed by strikes in Al-Borz province. A prominent synagogue in central Tehran has been reduced to rubble. The economic and military panic is spreading. Iranian allies are now threatening to shut down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in Yemen, promising to sever another massive artery of global trade. When asked what actually happens after the deadline passes and the dust settles, the president's response was brief: forget about next. When global leaders execute warfare with the mechanics of a blockbuster movie, they optimize everything for the dramatic climax. But this performance ends with real blood and ruined infrastructure. The damage remains long after the credits roll, and the trapped audience cannot simply leave the theater when the performance ends.